please. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome as usual, and congratulations on everyone surviving 2018, including myself. Yeah, so I think we just have a few things to run through, and then as per usual, we'll do our fun game of question and does Joe know the answer? All right. So conditional use permits, I'll say continue to kind of trickle in if anyone cares about that. We have really begun, I'd say, doing our best to begin issuing operating permits. We have folks that are in a couple different buckets. We have registered cultivators that, if you are one of them, that operating permit from us is going to be really the last piece of paper that you get. I like to kind of call it the carrot and the stick. Otherwise, those folks that are not a legacy operator are having to kind of go through, get their CUP, get their building permit, complete their build out. And as far as cultivators go, I think we've issued 3 non-legacy cultivation permits, and then a number of non-operating permits. And those are folks that have their CUP, have completed their business operating permit application, and but they have yet to complete their build out. And we are going to be working very diligently to try and work through the 382 applications that we have submitted, which is a healthy number because you are looking at the bulk of the office staff. Oh, my policy update. So if you recall, back in May of last year, Sacramento held the first event in the state. Thank you very much. It was a one-off approval by the city council, and on Tuesday night, the council granted the city manager or his designee, he might select me, might not, to approve future events taking place at Cal Expo. We also made the technical cleanup in the code that would allow Sacramento dispensaries to legally sell on site at those special events. Fingerprinting requirements. If you are an operating business, either a existing permitted business or a legacy operator that is one of our registered folks, still need to complete all of your fingerprinting. If you've already done it, this doesn't apply to you, but if you haven't gone out and done your fingerprinting yet and you're operating, please do so. If you are close to being operating, probably not a bad thing to check off the list also. If you have questions as to who needs to be fingerprinted, that is the code section to which it applies. Fingerprinting requirements continued. Wow. We do them here. It's by appointment only. and make sure that you bring all the necessary documentation for your live scan appointment. You can also use a different location, but we need to make sure that those records are going to the right email address. So make sure you're coordinating that. If you have any questions around that, please give us a call. Taxation. So Sacramento has a 4% gross receipts tax. Gross receipts means every dollar in minus the taxes that you have paid. So if you have paid an excise tax or a cultivation tax or any other type of tax, you are allowed and should probably, for your own business operations, deduct all of those taxes when calculating your gross receipts to calculate your 4%. I don't say this with certainty, but I have heard that it's possible that the state will ask you to report your taxes somewhat differently. They may ask you to include the excise tax. So work with whomever your tax person is in your organization or a tax professional, but for our purposes, deduct all of the taxes that you pay prior to calculating your gross receipts. If you didn't know, taxes that are owed, $148 a pound on cannabis, and then the excise tax, depending on 15%, depending on if it's an arm's length or non-arm's length transaction. Does anybody need any questions on arm's length and non-arm's length transactions? Skeptical. So there's a number of items coming before the Law and Legislation Committee. One of them is going to be events taking place outside of Cal Expo. So per state law, beginning January 1st, cities and counties are allowed to have temporary cannabis events with on-site sales and consumptions at areas other than county fairgrounds. And we'll be bringing that policy question to the city for consideration, probably, to the policy committee in February. I'm not sure the exact timing after that, should it pass. We are also going to be having the conversation of diversifying the cannabis, sorry, I'm looking for the exact phrase of what council's direction was. Strategies for diversifying the cannabis industry, which could or could not include the additional of new storefront dispensaries. So we're going to be having really at least a part of a policy consideration that will include expanding the number of storefront dispensaries. I believe that there's at least a potential, I won't say consensus, but there is at least a desire to have that conversation at the council level around adding some number of storefront dispensaries. I don't know how many at this time. I couldn't begin to kind of formulate a number. That is what I'm trying to develop a policy recommendation right now around. I don't think that the council would entertain something similar to Portland or Denver that have 150 and almost 200 dispensaries. I don't think that we're going to go anywhere close to that direction. We're also going to be doing some Title V cleanup. Title V is our own internal city code that regulates cannabis. It's going to include things like removing the ID badge requirement for dispensaries. Most of it is technical and non-substantive. We are also going to, what else is in there that, it's really all technical stuff. We're also going to be having a conversation around volatile extraction. So I don't have a date for that, but the fire marshal and myself are going to be taking a tour of a couple volatile extraction facilities to evaluate whether or not that is appropriate for the city of Sacramento. I would say it's possible that a recommendation to the council, at least to the policy committee, of allowing volatile extraction to take place in the city of Sacramento could be forthcoming. And then on-site consumption. Separate to the question of adding new storefront dispensaries, I hope to bring forward a policy question for the council to consider, which would include allowing on-site consumption, which, as you know, can only take place at dispensaries or temporary events. So we'll see how that goes. I think that probably has like a March or April kind of timeline to go to its first policy stop. And I have no crystal ball on that one as to whether there's really any appetite for approving such a thing. I've been to one in San Francisco. It was very nice. So I don't think I think people might have some preconceived notions around what these things are going to potentially look like. The Barbary Coast certainly was an eye-opening experience, I think, for me. So we'll see. Any other kind of policy stuff? Not really. I don't think so. I think it's enough. It seems like I'm at council like every other week with like a policy thing. And that's really all I have in terms of an update. We are continuing to try and process your applications as quickly as we can, and of course want to hear from you. So with talk about security. Oh yes, thank you. Not on the agenda, but on the agenda. If you are handling product, if you are handling cash, please listen to my words. Be careful. There are things that you should be doing and considering that relate to the operations of your business. If you are receiving deliveries and shipments on consistent times, stop. Make it irregular. If you have 20 employees and all 20 are aware of when shipments and deliveries are to come in, stop. One person probably should need to know. Your security guard needs to know minutes before that vehicle is to arrive. Please look at the information that involves cash and product and who knows it, and when those types of activities occur. And the more irregular it is and the more siloed that information, the safer you will be. If you are transporting cash from point A to point B, deviate your routes. Go out of your way to deviate your routes and be as unpredictable as you can. There's been a couple of robberies that have taken place. There's also been some burglaries that have taken place. But if you don't know the difference, the robbery is when someone comes and takes either cash or something of value off of you, like while you're present. And so really evaluate within your company structure who knows what. All of your employees shouldn't know that deliveries come on Tuesday, or they shouldn't know that a delivery is coming. If they need to work late, honestly, telling them when they show up, hey, can you work an extra half an hour today is probably the best. They don't need to know when deliveries and shipments are coming. They don't need to know the standard operating procedures for handling cash. They don't need to know how much is stored and where it is stored and the combinations to the safe. The more of that information that is dispersed within your organization, the less safe you are. And stress this enough. I've gotten to know some of you. I'd like to see you come back next month. But we've had at least 2 robberies this month, and it's the 24th. One of them, they took $30,000 in cash. So be very alert of your surroundings. Take a look outside of your building. Look for people sitting in cars. Look for the same car sitting there. Again, I can't really stress this enough. Information is power, and the fewer people, knowledge of products, deliveries, volumes, and cash need to be on a need-to-know basis. You all work for the Department of Defense, like that would be like security clearance type. That's how I would consider it. If you have knowledge of cash and deliveries, you're essentially holding a security clearance for your company. Badges. If badges, employees should be leaving them at work. Leave them at work. You do not want your employee going to the Safeway wearing a badge that says fill in the blank cannabis company. You've just made your employee an unnecessary target because some idiot of a person is going to see them and think possibly one of 2 things, that they have cash or product in their car, and they're going to follow them out to their vehicle and they're going to rob them. So collectively, all of these things, until cash is taken out of this system, there's a higher amount of risk. And once the cash is taken out, then we can deal with just the risk of transferring the product, which still has a high value, but certainly not a high target as cash. But badges need to stay at the office. Control the flow of information around cash and deliveries. And if you're handling cash, deviate your routes. And maybe if it's possible, payment for deliveries should not occur at the time of the delivery. Arrange for that to take place separately. So, again, I know not everything is always possible, and we don't live in an ideal world, but I promise you, if you look at your standard operating procedures, there are things that you can do to keep you and your employees safe. Please. All right. With that, I'll get off my soapbox. All right. Seeing no questions.
Applications submitted for BOPs?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then any idea on the turnaround?
Our commitment has been and is still that we will not be the holdup. So if you have applied for your conditional use permit, you've received your conditional use permit, you've received your building permit, and you are doing your construction, we will not be the holdup for you. You will have your operating permit, provided that you have met all of the requirements of that application prior to your certificate of occupancy of that building. Hopefully long before you've completed your build out, potentially.
In regards to live scan, right now it extends towards CEOs and like upper management. Will it ever extend to lower level employees? And if so, what would be the timetable for that?
Well, it extends to managers right now for us. I think that there's a question. There was initially a policy discussion that took place around should everyone have to kind of go through a live scan. I think ultimately we kind of moved away from that because it can be a bit cumbersome. There is a degree of turnover. As an employer, you might want to evaluate that. I will say that we are having some similar experiences to other cities in that we are seeing a number of burglaries that appear to be done with people that have intimate knowledge of the inside of the building, right? They're breaking in and they know exactly where to go. Well, so I'm not saying that they're employees, but they're probably just psychic, and they know exactly where the, the vault is.
Just a general question on the gross receipts. Is that a typical definition throughout the city? I know on the state level, gross receipts exclude sales and returns on the big sales tax and all the tax and fees. Is this just a typical thing for all businesses in the city of Sacramento that pay a gross receipts tax to include returns and refunds?
Yeah, but the definition of gross receipts, I believe it's the same in the state. I haven't exactly compared our definition of gross receipts with exactly word for word with the states.
Did I misread it? I thought it said including all sales, including returns and refunds on the slide.
I believe it's Title 5, whichever title it is.
See, all sales, including refunds. So, just, not a big issue, but it's just.
I can speak for that one, Joe. That is sort of like adding a negative. You're including that number in there, which takes that number out, basically. That's poorly
Including
phrased.
a negative.
Yeah.
So you do get to take
That's
it out.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Add in your integers.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's poor verbiage on my part.
Hey, Joe. I was wondering if you had heard anything from the state about a banking policy where the state self-insures, since there is so much cash, so that down the road, Brinks or whatever companies can be hired to take that to the bank. I had heard initial reports last year, but have you heard anything?
No, the last I heard that there's still no real state bank option as of right now. The new treasurer is her and I are trying to connect at the moment around a couple of issues, but yeah, the last I heard it still sucks. Yeah, they had a task force, and after like a year, they came out and said, "Got nothing." So,
Good afternoon, Joe. So I remember at previous stakeholder meetings, it was noted that the occupancy permit would be required for the issuance of the BOP. So if we've got non-operational BOPs that have been issued and they're still building out, is the building permit being issued? Is that the requirement rather than the occupancy permit? Or how's that working if the occupancy is required to get the BOP?
so for your non-operational permit, you have to have your conditional use permit and have pulled your building permit. But it's not going to be converted to an operating permit until you are ready to operate. So,
Okay. So it's not actually the BOP until the occupancy permit is in your hands?
more of a NOP than a,
Right. Yeah, a NOP. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that point.
non-operational permit.
Hey, Joe. Is there any plans for any policy around consumption lounges without sales?
So that requires a change in state law. I think that there's probably I believe that there's a healthy appetite to have that policy debate. I don't know if anybody's introduced that bill, but the concept of like a designated consumption area, that is essentially what states like Colorado have adopted. So dispensaries in Colorado cannot have on-site consumption, but they have designated consumption lounges, or consumption areas, so you could be, the proverbial yoga studio, and what they do is they put like a little plaque on the outside says, Sundays at 10 o'clock, people are in here smoking weed. I think I'm joking. I think I wouldn't be surprised if a bill like that actually made it through the legislature and was signed. I mean, eventually I think, so legalization, in my view, is really kind of the application of market forces to manage this. And in order to effectively do that, we, to a degree, need to kind of meet the consumer where they want to go.
Hey, Joe. I had a question on the temporary certificate of occupancy, and I've been trying to figure out exactly what that is and what we need to get done, talking with some of the building people, where that's kind of just our last step right now, and we've been getting not very straight answers from a few places, and hoping maybe
my knowledge of the temporary certificate of occupancy is limited. I'll just be honest. I'm happy to connect you directly with someone and help facilitate that conversation in the building department to give you very clarity around what you need to do.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, let's connect. Oh, is there a slide on that? Oh. Oh yeah, there are flyers outside. We are having a couple of workshops. One of them is going to be on building. The other one's going to be on fire. So this is a great opportunity. Please spread the word. If you have applications in or building permit applications in, this would be a really good opportunity to get all of the people, bring your design professionals, bring your architect, bring your mom. Like, I'm not joking. Anybody that's going to have like say an input over like the design and all this stuff, like bring them. If they're making decisions and putting together these plans, like this is a really good opportunity. We're going to have the fire department here. We're going to have the building department here. It's your chance to ask very specific questions. They're going to walk through their process, and then there's going to be a chance, hopefully, to ask them, address your specific questions. And so these workshops are really intended to kind of shortcut all of the, what might take weeks of back and forth for you between the planning department or the fire department to get a direct answer around a particular question, like at that day.
So I think you might have answered this already, but currently we're prohibited from consuming cannabis on our cultivation facilities. If we want to do tasting, stuff like that, is there any progress in terms of not having to go to our boss's house to do it? Like, could we just do it on site in a special room or something?
Totally.
Okay.
If you want to lose your permit, you
Exactly.
put in.
Is there any update on that going forward? Where, no.
Yeah, no. I got nothing on that one. No. Please don't do that.
You said that storefronts could go to Cal Expo now and then deliveries as well, correct?
Correct.
And would we have to buy a special permit for that, or we're just using the one that we have here currently?
No, as I understand it, and I'm looking around for all the policy geeks in the room, but the event promoter is a licensed temporary event promoter. They get a secondary permit for that specific event, and licensed retailers can work with that. Now, the only kind of catch is the stuff is supposed to arrive via distributor to the place.
We could just work with them. And then do you think we'd have to buy a permit? Like, can we go outside of Sacramento? Like, can we go to LA to an event or anything, or no? Just Sacramento?
Again, it needs to travel via distributor, but yes, as long as it is a licensed special event. Like, don't go to LA, just on some random corner like Wilshire and start selling weed. But yeah, it would allow you to sell licensed special events.
And then one last one, sorry. I know now that we can sell in a county that is banned, I was told. Now, do we, like for delivery service wise, do we pay an extra tax for like that county as well, or just the one from the county we're leaving from like this county?
Well, if there's a prohibition, I would assume what. Oh. Destruction of cannabis products must be done on site. That does not answer the question. It's around the point of sale. I need to get back to you to give you like a very accurate answer. If a county has a ban, they probably don't have a cannabis specific tax. I think that there's probably some next level of clarification around the point of sale. So the Amazon case was that if you live in Sacramento, but you ordered something through Amazon that's in Elk Grove, right? The city of Sacramento collects that portion of the sales tax on the product that you bought because you live here in the city of Sacramento. It just doesn't all go to Elk Grove. So, yes, I think at some point we're gonna have to figure out, right, like that portion of the sales tax and where that goes back to and how that gets remitted. But that hopefully should be the job of CDTFA. But they're going to be using all the data that you collect from your point of sale system in order to do that. That's where I believe this is all going to go. This is like everything else cannabis related. This is kind of all a little new.
Joe, hey. So just a little bit of clarification on your answer regarding what can happen at licensed special events. Did I hear you correctly when you said, any licensed cultivator or retailer in the state can move around to license special events?
Well, not cultivators can't sell, but a licensed retailer can sell at licensed temporary events.
Okay, so if you are a licensed retailer in Sacramento and there's an event in LA, you can sell there.
Right.
Okay.
All that product needs to move via a distribution company.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Hey, Joe. Just a quick question about the fingerprinting requirements. Is this going to be an annual requirement? If you've done this in the past, can you?
If you've done it, if you've gone through LifeScan, you're done. You don't need to redo this annually.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi. Do you think there's going to be a cap on cultivators in the city of Sacramento anytime soon?
Well, we have a cap on the amount of square feet within the Power Inn Alliance area currently of 2.5 million square feet. I don't see there hasn't been discussion of an additional cap beyond that. The other condition that has been applied to a number of the more recent CUP applications has been a condition that they complete their build out and obtain a certificate of occupancy within just pull their building permit? Just activate? Yeah. This is Joy Patterson, everybody. She is our zoning administrator. She's the one who's approved all 168 of those conditional use permits.
Sure, I'll speak into the mic. In the southeast area, if you didn't know, there's a condition that within a year, and it isn't on everyone, but it's on everyone since the cap was adopted, primarily last summer. So from your date of approval, a year, you must obtain your building permit and start construction. And if so, all of you, I'll mention this in the workshops, but all of you in the southeast area, keep track of, it's a condition in there, keep track of that time. And if you're getting close to that time, you should be contacting us, because the city isn't going to contact you. So to see if you're making, it's the idea is you're to make substantial progress towards opening up. And so if you are, then you can ask to extend that time.
Yeah, and just so you know, I believe, as I understand it, the thought behind that policy was really to kind of get at land speculators who were really interested in just potentially flipping a property and not necessarily opening up a cannabis business. And we wanted that 2.5 million square feet to really go towards production as opposed to some sort of asset that would be left unutilized.
Any more questions?
Hey, Joe, one more question. Could you comment on the current status of the moratorium on the non-storefront dispensaries and where we are with that, if that has a sunset provision or and if that just applies to District 6 or if that currently applies to all of them? If you could just review that real quick for me, please.
Sure. So our cap of 30 storefront dispensaries originated in going back to 2009, 10. Oh, non-storefront dispensaries. Oh, sorry. We have a cap of 50 delivery permits within the Power Analyze Southeast industrial area. Have we hit all 50? We have 50 active applications, and so you're asking if it's going to be, if there's been talk of lifting that number?
Is that just indefinite, or are new applications being accepted in that area for delivery?
I mean, we can't prevent you from applying, but we have 50 applications, and we haven't issued all 50. We haven't issued 50. 51? Right, so, and there are some that are still incomplete. So we are going to stop issuing permits when we get to the number 50. So there is a scenario in which someone could submit a complete application tomorrow, and of the applications that we have, that is processed ahead of the 53 other ones that were submitted before that because they're incomplete. So, yes, you can still apply, and yes, there's, I guess, maybe a little bit, maybe more than theory in which you could be one of the 50. They're being processed in order of completeness and order received. So if it's not complete, we've got plenty of work to do other than that's the other thing. If you have an application in and you've got an email from Jamie that you've been sitting on, don't think that we're just that we have time to keep hounding you or really care about your complete application. At some point, we're going to hit 50 in that area, and the next email that you get from Jamie is going to be, sorry, you're number 51. I submitted it 12 months ago, but it was incomplete. So.
So am I correct in my understanding that there's a cap of 50 non-storefront delivery dispensary permits?
Only in the southeast industrial area.
Southeast, that's the Power and Industrial area.
Also known as the Power and Alliance area.
Okay. And so in
the Power and Alliance area. It's 50 delivery, storefront, and
Could be a storefront.
Oh, so the 50 is dispensaries, period. So there's some number of existing storefront dispensaries in that area also. Some of whom are moving.
But the 50, that this cap of 50 is delivery only dispensary.
No, so I was incorrect. It's for all dispensaries within the southeast industrial area.
All dispensaries, including
Storefronts, which there are a couple. One is in the process of moving. Two are in the process of moving.
Out of Power Inn.
One moved out of Power Inn. Another one's on the way moving, and I think there might be a third moving out of Power Inn.
Okay, so how do you juxtapose the number, this cap of 50, with the current cap of 30 storefront dispensaries?
So if there are 8 dispensaries within the Power Inn Alliance area that are storefront, we could issue 42 delivery non-storefront permits. If one of those storefront dispensaries move out, we could issue a 43rd non-storefront dispensary permit, and so on and so on. But that number of 30 storefront dispensaries is static at the moment.
Okay, so and I'm sorry, I just have to paraphrase because I'm slow, even though I don't smoke weed.
Me too.
Yes, and so in the southeast industrial area, if a dispensary, a storefront dispensary currently exists there, reaching the cap of 50 is something that opens up a pathway for delivery-only dispensaries, not storefront dispensaries. So in other words, if there's one storefront in that area, figuratively, you can award 49
Correct.
delivery-only dispensaries
Correct.
at this point. Okay.
And if that one storefront moves out, then we could issue one more non-storefront permit.
Okay. Which brings me to my second question. So in other areas, aside from the southeast industrial area, is the city accepting applications for delivery-only dispensaries?
Absolutely. I think we have another 20 applications, 15 plus applications outside of that area.
Okay. And there's no cap outside of that area?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Question on the neighborhood responsibility plan. At least my notes show that we were talking about the 4% gross receipts tax. And I was wondering if anybody has been paying the neighborhood responsibility plan, if the Nexus study was done, the 1%. I know as a landlord, people sign that. What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What happened to the,
Yeah.
It said neighborhood responsibility plan, but I think we talked about the gross receipts tax.
Did I skip that?
Yep. I think.
So on Tuesday night of this week, the council received and filed, which is the term for it, the Nexus study that was complete. If you want to go out and read it, I don't have much more information than that as to subsequent next steps as to what that may or may not be right now. So I think I'm going to need a little bit more time to kind of learn what those next steps are going to be. And as soon as I know, I will communicate that with all of you.
So no one's paid the 1% so far. We've not gotten that far.
Correct.
Thank you.
But the report is out if you want to go online and read it. It was on the item number 26 on the city council agenda on Tuesday.
Not sure if this is the place I need to bring this up, but is there any requirement for the departments that hire third-party consultants to actually make sure those consultants are performing in an effective manner? I'll give you a prime example. I'm a manufacturer, and I had a consultant, a third-party consultant, basically wants to have me comment on CO2 enrichment in manufacturing, and I'm going, that's for cultivation, that's not for manufacturing. And so they don't even understand the business of the plans that they're actually reviewing and making a bunch of comments. That's just wasting a lot of time.
Who is the third-party consultant? Is this the plan check?
Yes.
That the city
CSG.
that the city has hired? I'm happy to receive some of that feedback. You should also share it directly with like your planner. What they may or may not be doing is probably potentially kind of cut and paste from. Yeah. Oh, sorry, not your planner. Your the fire department. Yeah. So I'm happy to receive some of that feedback. It should also be shared. I'll connect you with the right person to share those comments with back to directly. But I think ultimately it would be the fire marshal. That's his. Yeah, and Jeff Brooks would also be a good person to probably provide that feedback to or not as well.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
Cool. Anything else happen out there that I should know? Talked about security. All right. Congratulations on surviving 2018. So Jeff Brooks is the person that you want to talk to.
Okay, so just go straight to him.
Yeah.
All the other planners and everybody else.
I would start with Jeff.